My topic is Azure AI shaping an accessible world. Essentially, it focuses on how Azure AI can make our world more accessible. But before I go into details, let me set the context a bit, what I mean by accessibility. Essentially, a lot of times it reflects into the physical world. And what I mean by physical world or the build world is, let's think about the ramps that we have in the building. Or in Netherlands, you see on a lot of platforms like bus and train platforms, you have those white tactical pavings, they are called, which is basically grid lines to guide people to reach to the certain destination. But if you think about how much time we spent on basically anything with the screen, like a mobile or a laptop, whatever, then the digital accessibility is also very important. In sort of very simple terms, it would be essentially having like the right color contrast on your website so that you can read it even if you have some vision issues, or having like a good description for your images, like an alt text, which is one of the HTML tag that can be used. What that helps is if someone is using like a screen reader type of software, then they would know what's written over there. The more like let's say nuance or official definition is making sure that your digital product and services is accessible to people with disabilities. And the second part is it's not only accessible, but they have essentially the similar experience as all other users. And this is really important because we come back to this later on as well. Now, accessible to people with disabilities, but then what are those disabilities? If you think generally there is like 5-6 categories. So for example, vision, cognitive, speech, auditory, and motor. And these disabilities are they are not like binary thing. So for example, vision is not like people can see or not see. There is like a whole scale of that. So that means people have some sort of color blindness, maybe partially see, use some sort of even like specs is also essentially a accessible device which is helping people with some sort of vision issues. So if we think about why it really matters, like why are we even having this discussion, the general association for these things is that we focus on people with permanent disabilities. And what that means is someone who cannot see at all, or someone who needs a wheelchair all the time to go from place A to B. But there is a much bigger category of also temporary and situational dependency, disabilities. What I mean by that is if you are injured at a certain time, or if you have even like a stuffed ears, then you cannot hear for a couple of days or whatever. Situational means if you are traveling to work, if you are driving your car, you cannot like read on your phone, or at least you shouldn't read it. I mean, I guess you can read it, but you shouldn't do that. If you are in a, I don't know, in a watching a video and maybe the sound quality is not that good, you cannot like just max it out and try to listen. You need maybe subtitles or some sort of things on top of that to help you that. So if you essentially combine all these three categories, the number that comes into mind, essentially 20% of population suffers one of these things, and that's essentially like 1 in a 5 users. So my argument is designing accessible products is not like a moral thing, it's not like a charity thing that you need to do. Essentially it is a good business case. Right, it's just, yeah, you are able to reach more users, you can advertise much better. So you can think about it just from the business side, not from like a morality thing or a charity thing, something like that. Because coming back to the original point, when you start doing that, then the making sure that users having same experience, that takes a back seat. Now, this is making accessible digital technologies. It's not something which started with AI. Like it's been there more or less since internet started. So what we have is we have this web content accessibility guidelines. This is the a group which set all the rules essentially on web content. So for example, the color contrast, but also what sort of page hierarchy you should follow. If you are if someone is using like a keyboard navigation or using like a screen reader type of technology, then how should you design your content to make sure that actually those technologies can work with this? Something coming up. Okay. I will continue and let's. Then there are a number of accessible technologies as well. So, for example, closed captioning is one of that, right? So, closed captioning essentially it not only shows like the sounds bit of the video, but also other things happening. So, if like a music is playing, it will show you, well, music is playing. Just give me 1 minute. It would be too bad if this also stops working. Let me. Yeah. Also, if you guys realize, oh, there was nothing really there in the slides anyway. So what was the point of that? Yeah. No. I'm a bit off on my time, so if you can indicate to me when. Okay, so we are talking about closed captioning. Similarly, screen reader, very helpful software. The voice assistant that we have, that also is a great accessibility technology. Just think like it's difficult to realize, but let's say for somebody who has a very difficult time typing things, just checking simple things like how's the weather, how can I go to a restaurant, how can I make a reservation, those things can be really complicated tasks. But with a voice assistant like all the Siri and Alexa we saw in the keynote speakers, those technologies are really helpful because then you can just talk to it. In general, talking is sometimes a lot easier than typing or searching for things. Yeah. Then let's look at what's the role of AI in all this. I was looking for what's the one word I can use to describe, and I think democratization of technology reflects good on what's the role of AI essentially is. And what I mean by that is essentially it sort of simplifies the technology, and it makes something which can be very manual and time consuming. It's just very simple to use it. In many cases, it's sort of just adding an API call. It's also very scalable, so you can go from very like few users to really large set of users easily, and also in many cases cheap as well. So if you think about, for example, the image recognition AI technologies, we saw earlier the alt text thing. If you have a website where a lot of images are getting uploaded and someone has to manually put some text or description of those websites, that can be a very time consuming thing. But with an image recognition, you can do at least 80 to 90% automatically, and the small bits that you miss, that can be a manual effort. So image recognition can help a lot in that. Similarly, speech recognition also, because then you can provide a personalized experience to the users. Essentially, the text to speech and speech to text, that's like the backbone of a lot of accessible technologies, and that's where AI provides a lot of value. In this talk, we want to focus on Azure AI. So let's look at what Azure AI does it. By the way, I don't work for Microsoft. I only use their products. I don't have any affiliation. But I do think they are very good at using their own AI technologies in their products, and they really, as an organization, strive for making accessible products. So one of the thing is, for example, in Teams, you have some simples are very it's not very complicated features. So you have like the blur background, but you also have a live caption and translation feature. Like I work in a Dutch company, most of my colleagues speak good English, but sometimes it's also easier for them to describe something complicated in Dutch. I understand to a large extent, but some bits I miss. So what we do is I turn it on for myself, and I have a live translation in English. So whatever small bits I miss, I can easily recover from that. And the other thing you will start noticing is that the technologies which are designed with disability in mind, later on becomes general accessibility thing. So like everyone starts using it. So that's also something to keep in mind, that it's not like if something is designed with a particular disability in mind, only those people are using it. It gets used by a much wider audience. In the Copilot, you have images description, but you also have a voice chat functionality. That's a very nice feature. Summarized text also there. There are some things in Edge as well. I personally don't use it. I'm not sure if it's enough for someone to start using Edge, but you probably have similar features in other browsers as well. So like reading the text. So instead of you manually reading it, it's sort of you are listening to it. What we can do with this, one of the use cases we can very easily implement is, for example, having all the news apps that you have, instead of reading it, if you can use it with Azure Speech Service and the translation to basically hear it in the voice that you want and in the language you want. I think I did a small check, and out of, let's say, top 10 Dutch news website, I think a couple of them are offering this feature, but it is not a default. While I think this is not like a really complicated thing one needs to do. Altogether, they are supporting more than 100 languages, and almost each language has like a number of what you call voice galleries. So it's like a male voice or a female voice, someone really high octane or low octane, that sort of thing is there. There is some other feature like a custom voice feature is also there. So what I mean by that is you can basically have a voice of your own company or someone from your company or some like your own brand voice. I don't know if people have like a favorite like a news anchor with whom they want to listen, but yeah, you can do that as well. Now, there is a role for government here as well in terms of regulations. So I think that hopefully it's a popular thing everyone would know, but if not, then we do have this EU Accessibility Act, which is coming just in 2-3 months. What it acts is doing in general is it's enabling consistency. So basically the rule for these products and services, they will be sort of harmonized across the EU countries, and that also helps in because in past every country has like their own rule, and that makes it a bit more difficult. It also does the compliance by law, and what that means is if you're not compliant, you can be fined on it. So that has a motivation of its own, let's say. However, what regulation cannot do is enabling that similar experience that we talked about earlier, because regulation can force like, okay, you have to provide description for all your images, but whether that's a relevant description, whether that's a description which actually adds some sort of value, I'm not sure, right? So regulation can never force that, because if you want to do that, then you need to go back and think about accessibility as something part of a design process. Start thinking of this in the design, and not like, let's build the product and before shipping let's run it through some sort of accessibility checker, and we get a long list of issues and we start fixing some of them. Maybe the experience somewhere breaks, but well, we already fix a lot. So that's what I don't like about regulation. It sort of enables that culture sometimes. Of course, there are some challenges as well, especially if we are using certain AI technologies, then there can be biases. So if you think of, if you use some sort of speech recognition, and let's say if that is trained on a particular type, a particular language or a particular accent of that language, let's say American English or UK English, whatever, then other ones it won't be able to recognize. So that can be a very, let's say, detrimental effect on the user experience. You can also have a problem of perspective taking. So what I mean by that is the people who are building these things start thinking in terms of the users. And we earlier saw like it's 1 in a 5, but that ratio does not always reflect into the workplaces. So this can be quite, because, well, we are not the users. Let's say the person with disability is the user. To avoid this, you should really try to reach out to your actual users, make sure that whatever the feedback mechanism that you have, that's also accessible. So, for example, people can speak, use some sort of speech to text as well in your feedback forms. Yeah, that can help. Last one is how do you actually define your success criteria? That's also very important. Now, why is that? Because these accessibility needs for different groups sometimes compete with each other. So you do need to think about which are your users and what sort of disabilities you want to target. One example would be, let's say, if you have like a mobile game or something displayed on a small screen, and if you have like speech to text, so whatever people are speaking while playing that game, you are projecting on the screen, but then that can make the display much smaller. So someone with cognitive disabilities, it can be very difficult for them to follow. It also increases your cognitive load. So you need to think about, okay, which are my user groups, what sort of things I want to fix. It's a sort of bit of a controversial, but you cannot have an app which targets 100% disabilities. Yeah, with this, I would like to say thank you for your attention. It was a bit of a ride, at least for me, hopefully for you as well. So, yeah, well, next time we'll get a better laptop. Thank you.